Guys, we have so much still to come here on the Elite Sports Podcast, but we want to take this time to tell you about our new sponsor, 500 Level. 500 Level is the ultimate sports apparel and fan gear store, and they feature ultra-comfortable custom t-shirts for NFL, NBA, MLB, NHL, and even WWE. I just got a Macho Man Randy Savage shirt from 500 Level that has been a conversation starter everywhere I go. 500 Level was created because they decided it was time to create an apparel company that put the fans right in the mix, instead of having to outfit themselves with the same old gear from major corporations. 500level.com works with exceptionally talented artists, designers, and diehard sports fans to create unique t-shirt designs for fans to wear with pride. I mean, here in Kansas City, it's time to defend that Lombardi trophy. So stock up in 500 Level's unbelievable inventory of never-before-seen designs for players like Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, Tyreek Hill, or even rookie Clyde Edwards-Helaire. You literally can't find that anywhere else. Use promo code KansasCity20 today for 20% off your order at 500level.com. That's promo code KansasCity20 for 20% off only at 500level.com. It's actually been a year since we've had you on, and I just looked it up. The last time we had you on, we were talking about the 6-4 Chiefs that just lost to the Tennessee Titans. Noah and I were calling them hashtag Team Trash after the effort. All they've done since then is won 17 out of 18 and a Super Bowl. So you're talking to two idiots here, Jeffrey, and so just don't hold that against us.
All right. Well, it worked out, didn't it?
It did, and we're here at the bye week at 8-1. It's really strange, kind of watching this team this year, Jeffrey, as you look around, and the team's 8-1. I think they're plus 243 points in the last year, plus 243 and versus opponents, which is insane. And 8-1 on the year. That loss to the Chargers was the blip in the road. But as you kind of assess things, as you look at this team, should get Mitchell Schwartz back, should get Sammy Watkins back for the remaining 7 games. Is this kind of about where you saw the Chiefs? And where do you, when you look at them right now, how do you kind of assess where they are? Obviously, the Pittsburgh Steelers are undefeated. Does it kind of come down to Chiefs and Steelers? Is that the collision course we're on?
I think it is. I mean, but I think there's other players that are going to probably step up at some point in the second half of the season. I mean, to answer your first question, yeah, I think they're about where I figured they would be, probably about, 8-1, 7-2 around this point. Everybody's going to have injuries. I think that should have been the expectation going into this season. And they've done pretty well. I mean, they haven't, aside from losing Kelechi Osemele, and I think one other guy was lost for the year. I forget who it was. But nobody of significance. They've been able to avoid the kind of things that have affected the 49ers, for example. They played in the Super Bowl, who's lost, of key players, key starters. So I think they're in good shape there. I think that what's been really encouraging about the way they've played is they've been able to find balance. And you go back to a couple of years ago when they were just starting to make their way, they were really all about the offense and throwing the football around and trying to outscore people. And now they've got a running game that they can rely upon. They've got a defense they can rely upon. They've won games with special teams play, the Harrison Butker, that Chargers game, making some pivotal kicks. So I think they're in pretty good shape.
Well, Jeff, let's talk a little bit about this MVP race, because it looks like Mahomes is leading it right now. Josh Allen can't decide whether he's in or out. Tom Brady and Russell Wilson are downtrending after these last couple performances by them. So where do you see this MVP race going?
Oh, I still think Russell Wilson is in the lead. It's funny,
Really?
I had a conversation on the radio about this. Yeah. Well, I mean, I think here's the argument that Russell Wilson has had going for him since day one. He's got a horrible defense, the worst defense they've ever had there, and probably the worst defense in the NFL right now. They've lost like 3 or 4 running backs. They're down to playing guys they sign off the streets or from their practice squad. He really only has 2 receivers. He's having they lead the league in scoring. I think that he leads the league in touchdown passes.
Yep.
He has had 2 or 3 comeback wins, and he's in the best division in football. I mean, literally, if you're talking about a guy who's carrying a team, to a 6-2 record. I don't know where. I'll say this: the Chiefs were able to win a game last year with Patrick Mahomes on the sideline. I don't know if the Seattle Seahawks can win a game this year without Russell Wilson playing quarterback. That's why he's my MVP.
That's fair. Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to ask you about other team in the Chiefs division, the Las Vegas Raiders, are 5-3 here, kind of playing some really good complementary football. That offense is really a force to be reckoned with right now. Just seeing what John Gruden and Mike Mayock have been able to do building this roster. They were able to beat the Chiefs, kind of get that monkey off their back. The Chiefs are 8-1. The Raiders are 5-3. The two are going to meet in a couple of weeks. Are the Raiders in this thing? They've proven that they're a real team, but where are we at with them? There's going to be probably 8 playoff teams, so we think they're probably at least going to get in there because half the conference is. So,
yeah, I think they're very much in it. I think if you watch them play the Chiefs the first time around, I think they legitimize themselves as a serious playoff contender. I mean, I think that team could win 10 games pretty easily based on how they played. If that's the way they can play at their best, and they're able to stay consistent in that and avoid injuries, yeah, I think they've got a lot of good things going for them. And in fact, I think, I was watching ESPN, their morning show Get Up the other day, and they were talking about who's the biggest threat to the Chiefs, and one guy picked the Raiders because they've beaten them before. And I kind of agree with that. I think the Steelers are a really good team, and based on record, they've got the best. They're the best team right now because they haven't lost a game. But I think once they lose a game, I think the Chiefs will be considered the best team. But I think the Raiders, with what they have on offense, even though they're not great on defense, they can challenge the Chiefs, because to beat the Chiefs, you have to be able to score points. You have to be able to slow them down. So you have to be able to keep Patrick Mahomes off the field. And with what they have in offense with Henry Ruggs and Josh Jacobs and Darren Waller and Nelson Aguilar's played good football for them. They've got some weapons and a good offensive line. So I think that they're very much a real team.
No, that's a good point. I mean, they've got the deep weapons, and they've got Waller intermediate, and then they can pound and ground you on the with Josh Jacobs and control the ball and keep the Chiefs on the sideline. So that's a good point. But Jeff, we are all used to being forced into talking Patriots, but now that Tom Brady's in Tampa Bay, it seems like it's required by NFL podcasting law that we talk Bucks. So you recently wrote an article for NFL.com saying the Bucks were the favorite in the NFC after they escaped with a victory against the Giants Monday night. Now Bruce Arians is calling out Tom and the media after losses, especially this recent Sunday night massacre at the hand of the Saints. So what do you make of what's going on down in Tampa?
I think Tampa is a work in progress. And I think the point I was making in that article was that they're the best team in a flawed conference, that they're really hard to find any team to fall in love with. Now, New Orleans is making a move. I think the way they played against the Bucks, they really made a statement about where they're at. Their defense is coming around. Getting Michael Thomas back on the field is a big lift to them. And they're getting healthy at the right time. I think the Bucks on paper have everything you want in a championship caliber team. Can they make it all work? A lot of ways, they're a lot like the LA Clippers in the NBA, where they've added so many different pieces, and they basically added 3 or 4 different key pieces within the last 2-3 months. Whether it was Leonard Fournette, Antonio Brown, Gronkowski came back from retirement. He wasn't doing a whole bunch in the off season, so he had to get going and get work. So sometimes you can have too many weapons. And I think that's what they feel like to me, a team that's trying to figure out, who needs to get the ball, when they have to get the ball. And it's just, they're having a hard time distributing the football and playing to their strengths. In fact, you look at the teams that have beaten them, it's not surprising that their 3 losses have come against teams that have pretty good defenses. Because I think when you've got good defenses, you can take away some of the things they do well.
Jeffrey, I kind of want to go a little broader with you on this next one because, I'm equally an NFL and college football junkie, but man, this year has been so different. I feel like the on-field action, the National Football League has done just such a great job. Of course, we've seen games moved around. We've seen the Titans go on the shelf for a couple of weeks, but overall, things are moving. The games are exciting, even without a lot of fans in the stands and things like that. Whereas college football is really struggling. You've got the Big Ten that just started, and maybe more on that in a little bit. Maybe talk some Michigan with you, but college football, 4 of the 7 SEC games are canceled for this weekend, or they're trying to push games back. The Pac-12, before they could even get a game in, I think Cal and Stanford had a game canceled. It just doesn't feel right. The scales are tipping. I'm really all in on the NFL this year, whereas college, it just doesn't really feel real. What are your thoughts kind of on how the football season's gone in general so far?
Well, if you go back to the summer when there was always talk about what's college football going to do, how's it going to work, and people were giving the Big Ten all kinds of crap about bowing out, and the Pac-12 all kinds of shit about bowing out, and it's like, I think they felt like, okay, we're trying to work with the SEC here, the ACC, the Big 12, and these conferences clearly have a whole different picture about how they want to operate. And so, in my mind, the Big Ten and the Pac-12 have always been about player safety, and they should get credit for that. And so they went into this knowing it's going to be hard to make this work, but if we're going to try to make it work, we're going to try to be very conservative in what we do, whereas the SEC and the ACC and the Big 12 have gone out and said we're going to go, balls to the wall and make it work and fit games in. And ultimately, this is the byproduct of not having any collaboration. People not communicating, deciding let's have like some basic ground rules about how we're going to do things. And what the NFL and the pro sports leagues have benefited from is just that's been a requirement. They've had these leagues and the players have had to sit down and talk about how they're going to do things and what the protocols are going to be and how everybody's going to operate. And there's going to be a certain type of punishment for people who don't do the right thing. And it's helped them. And so that, to me, is what you're seeing with college football now. It's just it should have been expected from day one, because anybody who thought these kids were going to go to college and have the lay of the land and not be out there hanging out and partying and chasing girls and getting COVID was kidding themselves. Whereas in professional sport, that's what kids do, right? I mean, if I was on college, I'd be doing the same thing.
Yeah.
But in professional sports, it's a job, and there's a price to be paid if you're not doing your job correctly. And I think that's helped the NFL and every other pro sports league.
Yeah, and staying with that topic on the NFL side, with COVID comes flexibility and fluidity this year, as now we can potentially have 16 playoff teams if games start to get canceled down the stretch. And with that said, is this the year the NFL just has to put their foot down and disallow the NFC least from participating in the postseason?
Well, I do think what's interesting about that playoff plan that was offered up as a contingency, which I think they'll probably have to go to it at some point, the way the numbers are going, that you're probably going to start seeing games getting canceled. If they end up going to 8 teams and they're seeding teams, that's one way to mitigate what you're talking about here. I mean, unfortunately, those teams in the NFC East have been a disaster. And some of that, like I kind of feel like if Dallas hadn't lost Dak Prescott, they would have found a way to be a 9-7 team, because there's just so much talent there. But I actually like the idea of opening it up and adding in other playoff teams. I think baseball, to me, became really interesting this season by doing that and having 16 playoff teams, because there were teams I've never really watched, like the Marlins or the Padres, who were in there and made runs. And it's just, I think you're going to end up having, not every team play 16 games. I think you're going to end up having some kind of unbalanced situation. And I think the best way to mitigate that is just saying, hey, let's just have an open field. Nobody gets a bye. Everybody's playing 3 playoff games to get to the Super Bowl, and we'll see what happens.
I don't know. In your scenario there, someone out there could be enjoying the Browns upsetting the Chiefs in the first round of the playoffs, and that scares me a little bit. But no, yeah, absolutely could be the case. Jeffrey, as we look down the pike here, obviously it looks like Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields are going to be heading to the AFC as the way things are shaking out. And I mean, it just seems like the AFC has tended to harvest the top quarterback prospects here for the last few years. I mean, is it as clear cut and simple as this, or are the Jets ready to let go of Sam Darnold? And does Sam Darnold have a shelf life beyond his first couple years in disastrous New York?
Well, I think I'll answer the second question first. If you look at Ryan Tannehill, I would say Sam Darnold's probably got the second chance somewhere to get his career turned around. I mean, he hasn't had the best weapons there or the best coaching, and that can be tough on a young quarterback. But I think if he got into a better situation with better talent around him, you might see a better Sam Darnold. And I mean, I think the AFC has certainly been getting some of the better young prospects, but I think they've also been in a position where most of their older quarterbacks have cycled out faster. The NFC, you still got, obviously Tom Brady went to the NFC, but the Drew Breeses, Russell Wilson's been making his name for a while. Aaron Rodgers, people like that have been around for a while. But I do think what's happening with college football and pro football when it comes to the quarterback position. And this kind of goes back to the whole thing with Mahomes and the MVP race, is that it's so much easier to play quarterback in the NFL nowadays. Mm-hmm. And so what you're seeing now is teams are saying, look, if we have to get rid of a guy that we drafted, it's not going to cost us that much. Let's get somebody else in, see how fast he can matriculate and get up to speed. And if he can't do it, we'll go to somebody else. I mean, so you saw what happened with the Cardinals giving up on Josh Rosen, and now they've got a kid in Kyler Murray who looks like he could be an MVP candidate at some point. I've heard even people talking about Miami playing Tua Tagovailoa now because they want to see what they have. And if he's not up to snuff, maybe they do try to make a move and get a Trevor Lawrence, because they're going to have the Texans pick, which might end up being a top 2 or 3 pick. And so what's happening now is, and why it affects someone like Mahomes in the MVP race, is that the numbers get so skewed. And so when you have somebody who's got 25 touchdown passes and 1 interception, it doesn't look as good as it did 10 years ago, because now you've got 10 guys who probably have 20 touchdown passes and 2 interceptions or 3 interceptions. I mean, even the year Mahomes won the MVP, he was 50-12, but Drew Brees was 32-5. Mm-hmm. And so the point I'm making, larger point I'm making, is that I just think it's so much easier to play quarterback now. And a lot of these teams are saying, hey, look, let's go get a guy and get him up and running, and let's coach him up, coach to his strengths, and hopefully we can get 10 good years out of him.
Well, Jeffri, we can't thank you enough for joining us today. Before we get you out of here, we got to go to our first and goal segment, which is 4 quick questions, and we got to try to get to the end zone. We'll go home on this one, brought to you by 500 Level. Jeffri, first question, where is Jim Harbaugh coaching next year? Actually, let me rephrase that. Which NFL franchise is Jim Harbaugh coaching at next year?
Well, you know what? I don't even know if he's going to have an NFL job the way things are going right now. The way he's coaching. But he's got 1 year left at Michigan. After this year, I think he'll still be at Michigan. But my gut tells me he won't be there beyond Michigan. He'll be back in the NFL after that point, probably with a team that is, he'll find a job somewhere, but it won't be with the same kind of luster that he brought to Michigan or San Francisco before that.
Yeah, absolutely. And second to goal here, just out of Joe Burrow, Tua, and Justin Herbert over the next 10 years, if you had to pick one, which one were you going with?
I'm going Justin Herbert. I think that his success this year, he'll probably end up being the NFL Offensive Rookie of the Year, changes the whole dynamic around the Chargers, because now they're able to hold on to some pretty good players that they've had. They're able to go out and invest and find some more weapons to put around. They've got a pretty good roster. I mean, as much as they screw things up and, blow leads and close games, like, they've got a lot of talent. If the quarterback can play, that puts them in a situation where now they can go out and really try to build up that roster and try to chase the Chiefs and compete with the Chiefs. So I think he's in the best situation right now.
Okay, I'm going out on a limb on question 3 here. I'm assuming that you've been live in some NFL stadiums this year that have had some people in the crowd. What is the loudest stadium you've been in so far in 2020?
That'd be Arrowhead, because that's the only stadium I've been in that actually has fans in it. So by default, they're the ones that went out. Yeah, every other stadium I've been to New Orleans and I've been to Houston, and both those games were 0 fans. So the Chiefs are running away with this one. Loudest stadium in the world right now.
Hey, bring back the Guinness Book of World Records. Let's redo that. Let's do it.
That's right. The decibel level of 16 is like that's the new record instead of 142.5.
Well, our last one here for you, Jeff. Again, we can't thank you enough. It's always an honor to have you on. We've seen 8 to 9 games out of these teams so far this season. Let's get your Super Bowl picks on record halfway through the COVID 2020 NFL season.
I'll take Chiefs and I'll take Saints. I think earlier I had Bucks Steelers, but I'll take Chiefs Saints right now.
We will write that down, and we will hold your feet to the fire on that, of course, as always. Jeffri Chadiha, NFL.com. We always love the work. Can't wait to see what's coming up next. So you got any big articles coming out? It's been like a week. We're ready for something new. What do you got working on over there?
Yeah. Well, it's been unfortunately I got some time off with the bye week, and I actually have been working on a story about quarterbacks and just what's the the biggest quality or the most important quality you should look for when you're looking for a quarterback. And just looking at the guys like Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, Lamar Jackson, some of the more notable people Mahomes has gone through this. I think mental toughness, but it's having a guy who's gone through something at some point in his life that allows him to deal with adversity and handle success. I think that's, if you look at some of the elite guys and the top tier guys in the NFL right now, like they've all kind of gone through something in their lives that's helped them get to where they are today. So that's what I'm working on.
Oh, that sounds great.
That, or if they played shortstop at some time growing up. So that seems to be a key with all these guys.
Yeah, that's right.
Just connecting some dots there. Yeah. Jeffri Chadiha, NFL.com. Thank you so much, my friend. Let's not wait a year this next time. We'll do it again soon, my friend. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. Take care. Sorry about being late.
Hey, no problem at all, my friend. Thank you.